We'll get started. Magnus, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it.
Absolute pleasure. Great to have you here. As always, I think a great place to start would be, what are you doing now? And I guess also, what have been the steps that have led you here?
Yeah. So I'm an anxiety coach. I've been an anxiety coach for the last 3 years. It's been a wild journey. I guess we'll start in 2019 when I started experiencing anxiety. That makes sense. That's context of why I became an anxiety coach. So we'll start there. Yeah, 2019.
Yeah, 2019. And before this period, had you experienced anxiety before? What was your perception of mental health? Because for me, before I had that moment, I think I was 19 as well, where I experienced sort of mental health complexities or challenges for the first time. Before then, I didn't really think it was a thing. I was like, okay, people are depressed. Okay, well then surely just be happier. You know, I didn't really get it. Like you're clueless until you've experienced anything like that.
Yeah.
And then when I was 19, I had my moment where I was like, okay, wow, what is this? So were you in a similar boat then? And what was that incident that kind of led you down your current path?
Yeah, man. Great question. So I had the same mindset. I remember when I was 16, I saw someone have a panic attack in the cafe of sixth form. And I remember sitting next to her and I thought, what, you're just seeking attention. You're just trying to get attention. Just get over it. That's what I thought. I genuinely thought that. And I ate a big slice of humble pie when I was 19. Yeah, so I had the same mindset. In hindsight, I did struggle with anxiety beforehand when I was a teenager. I just didn't know what it was. But now I'm able to look back and think, actually, there were some symptoms of anxiety there. You know, I'd have derealization, which is when you dissociate from your body and your environment. I remember having that in class. I remember having really high anxiety when I was speaking in class, like in front of a crowd. If I was presenting something, I'd feel abnormal levels of anxiety. I mean, it's normal to feel anxiety when you're speaking in front of a crowd, but like I felt jittery, whereas I saw other people and they were able to deliver it confidently. So I'm able to look back in hindsight and think, there was some signs, but it wasn't debilitating. It didn't disrupt my ability to function and live life. So it wasn't disordered. It was there were just a few signs and also a bit of depression in the mix as well.
Yeah, that's interesting because on the surface, they are just surface level things. Like you just say, okay, you're just nervous, or some people are more confident than others.
Exactly.
I find this idea really, really interesting because because I think the mentality a lot of people have is, okay, well, don't look too much into it. You don't need to label everything, right? But do you think that would have benefited you when you were younger at that time, or do you think ignorance is bliss to an extent?
What would have benefited me?
Someone telling you, oh, these are symptoms of something.
It's a good question. It's a good question. Maybe. But I do think you only change when there's a lot of pain involved. So I don't think I would have changed anything if someone said, hey Magnus, I've noticed you're experiencing some symptoms of anxiety and depression. I probably would have got triggered by that and my ego would have taken charge and gone, no, fuck off, I'm confident. Because I always had this act when I was 15, 16, 17 that I was confident, I was putting on this act and trying to be this alpha type character, when in reality I was very insecure and I definitely had a lot of anxiety. Not obviously debilitating, but a lot of insecurities and anxiety.
This is what I think the majority of the population does. Yeah. I think everyone's just kind of in denial.
Yeah.
And I think the louder, this is my perspective, I feel like the louder a person is, the more insecure, the more shit they're actually hiding.
Yeah.
That's at least from my experience. But I think that's the majority of society, mate.
I know. I agree. Yeah, that was definitely me as well.
And me, I think for so long, mate, I thought I had no problems or anything. I had a normal upbringing. I just didn't. I think all that other stuff, like that was everyone else. Yeah. And you notice, I think, whenever people say that, then that's when, as soon as you think you know it all, you just don't, I think.
100%. Yeah.
And I wonder, in your experience then, because you had that moment of great pain and this is what I've noticed, for a lot of the time, until you experience that great pain. Aaron Timms was on the show for a second episode. He described it as a wake-up call.
Yeah.
It's essentially an ego death, and there's this whole concept of the ego, which a lot of people might not even be familiar with. This idea that, okay, we have an ego, and that's there to protect us. It's our identity, and it's our mind, but we're obviously so much more than that. And it's our ego that gets angry, gets triggered by external things, right? And we try very hard to cling on to this identity and this ego. And yeah, until we get a big wake-up call where our ego essentially dies, and we can't even protect it anymore, we can't live in this denial phase, that's where we start to make serious change. So what did that look like for you? What was your wake-up call? What was sort of going in to your head?
Yeah, so it was the first semester of university, and I was living like every single first year lives, drinking, smoking a lot of weed, hanging out with the wrong types of people, trying to hook up with girls, that sort of stuff. Typical university lifestyle of a 18, 19-year-old male. And one night I went round to a friend's house. He baked a bunch of weed edibles, homemade. And I started eating the weed edibles, and obviously you get the munchies. So the only thing I had available was more weed edibles. So I started eating them as the munchies.
And for those who aren't familiar,
Yeah.
munchies is when you basically have a lot of weed and then you get super hungry. It gives you this urge to just eat lots and lots, right?
Exactly. So I remember there were Smarties edibles, and so I started taking them. I was like, oh, nothing's kicking in. I learned after that edibles, it takes longer for weed to get into your bloodstream than if you smoke. So that's why it didn't kick in, but I didn't know that. And so I was eating loads and loads. I must have had a tray, like a whole tray. There was 2 trays and I had a full tray. And then suddenly I started having these really severe heart palpitations, and it was unmanageable. It was uncontrollable. And I just started getting really, really paranoid, like something bad was about to happen. And it got worse and worse and worse. I was trying to distract myself. I was trying to just pretend it wasn't happening. And it got really, really intense. And then I started throwing up. Suddenly this massive panic attack came out of nowhere, man. It was huge. It was like a bloody tsunami. I thought I was dying. That's the only thing I thought was happening. I thought I was dying. I even tried to type a text to my mum saying, I'm going to die. I'm sorry. I did this to you. I really am sorry. And then, long story short, I ended up crawling part of the way home back to my apartment, and I was throwing up, and woke up the next day, was sick everywhere on my bed, and I just got up like nothing had happened. And then, 7 days later, I was revising in my room, and suddenly the walls started caving in, and I was like, something's not right. My heart starts beating again. I'm like, I've got a heart problem. I'm going to die. That's the same thing happened before.
And you were sober at this point?
I was sober. I was just revising for a mock exam. It was a Friday night. And then I ended up in A&E, and they put me in the waiting room. I was like rocking back and forth because I was just so convinced that I was going to die. And then I ended up barging through the security doors where the hospital, in A&E, they have like security on the doors. It was Friday night in Newcastle. So it's quite a rowdy. There was lots of people who'd been bashed up and a lot of people on drugs. And I literally barged through the security, through the doors. And I begged with the 2 nurses, please help me, I'm going to die. And they sat me on the bed. I started hyperventilating. My vision went, and that's when I thought I was going to die. And then they had to just calm me down. They gave me some sort of medication to calm down. I think it was, one of these, maybe a benzo or something like that. Don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, panic attacks are they're really fucking shit.
Yeah.
Have
you had any?
I've had one.
Okay.
I had one when I was in Barcelona, and again I thought I was dying. I went over. It was in this sort of party setting. It was actually, at the time, it was during the sort of COVID era, but they were starting to open stuff up, and the nightclubs weren't open, so there were these illegal raves that you go to. And there was this instance where I just, it was just, because obviously there was just concoction of things.
What were you on? Were you taking drugs?
Yeah, drinking. I think we had started drinking from about 3 p.m, and we'd gone late into the night, and yeah, just so much, just so tight. And I remember there was this instance where I could just feel myself like that.
Nasty.
And
That's
then
a
I'm
nasty
going
one.
to the bar, and I'm like I'm going to the lady at the bar, and and I was like tapping on my chest like that, and she's looking at me, and she's going, "Oh yeah, good." I was like, what are you doing? Like, hang on. So I was just like, oh, and I said to my mate at the time, I was just like, I need to take a breather. And then I actually sat down next to one of the DJs, and he was like, oh, you're having a panic attack. I was like, but how do you know I'm not dying? He's like, if you were dying, you wouldn't be able to speak to me.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, cool. So that helped calm me down. And then I went online, and then I was looking at like how to stop a panic attack, and it was like, okay, breathe in, breathe out, and then I was like with my mate, and I was like, okay, I think I feel better now. And I'd go over to the dance floor, and then I'd feel it coming on again.
Yeah, because of the stimulation, because your nervous system would have been very, very stimulated, especially with all the sounds and the noises and the people.
Yeah. So that was a wake up call as well. It was kind of like, oh, mate, what the fuck are you doing? Like, and yeah, because you can take advantage of your body as well. But yeah, it was in one way or another, it was a sort of wake up call. I think coming back to your story, what do you think happened at that stage then? You've got this reality of, okay, right, this is a panic attack, the knowledge is coming in. Where does that lead you then? How does your recovery journey look like?
Yeah, so after that night, everything changed. Everything. I wasn't able to leave my apartment. I really, my life changed overnight because I was convinced that I still had something physically wrong. They did tests on me in the hospital that night. I was there for about 6 hours. They did tests on me and they said it's just anxiety. I didn't know what anxiety was, for one, but two, I didn't believe them. I thought there's no way that could be just anxiety. It's not just the heart palpitations I was getting this real dissociation and like just disconnect from reality. So in my head, because I wasn't educated on what anxiety was, I thought, no, there's something deeper happening. There's something darker happening here. It can't just be a mental health thing. It's my body's deteriorating. My body's declining. And because I had that subconscious belief, because of the evidence that was presented in front of me and the lack of education, I just developed this strong belief that there's something wrong with me. So everywhere I went, I would just be convinced that I was about to drop dead. So that lasted for 2 to 3 years, really, of that state. And it was daily panic attacks. So for the first month, it was daily panic attacks. I wasn't able to leave my apartment. Then I would gradually try and go outside, go to the shops, do basic things. And that was a struggle. And then I'd revert back to staying in the house or in my apartment at uni. Ended up going home to live at my parents' house because I couldn't do it. I couldn't function anymore. Yeah, and that's... I went through a period as well of trying to mask it through drinking. So I went out and I drank to try and numb the feelings, and it would work. Drinking would be a good way of like keeping the anxiety base so I wouldn't have panic attacks. But then I'd wake up and I'd have a really bad one, like a really bad one.
Of course.
But there was this one day that changed. This was the beginning of my healing journey. This day, it was like the worst day of my life, and it was also the start of a new life. And it was, I went out the night before, I drank 10 Coronas, I was at this Tiger Club, and you're familiar with that?
Leicester Square.
No, it's in Newcastle, it was in Newcastle.
Oh, Newcastle,
yeah.
okay.
And then I woke up for a 9 a.m. seminar, my friend was waiting outside the building. I got up and I was like, I'm not going to go. I told him I'm not going to go. So I started walking anyway towards the seminar room. It was outside St. James's Park, the Newcastle Stadium, and I sat there. And for the first time in my life, I genuinely didn't know what to do in my own body because I was in so much psychological pain. I was like, I don't know what to do in my body. I don't know where to go. Like nothing. I'm stuck in this feeling. And I had thoughts like, just throw yourself in front of this car. Just throw yourself in this car. And that scared me. And I was like, right, I can't be here. I can't be here because I don't trust myself. So I ended up going to A&E. Checked myself in. They saw me. I was like, oh, no, not you again. Go to minor injuries. So they saw me. They because I went like multiple times that month. They said, "Oh, go to minor injuries."
Did you say you had suicidal impulses or tendencies?
No, I didn't. I just said, I need help. I just need help. like, I didn't even know what to say. I was just like, I need help.
Yeah, because you're running away from your own mind, really.
Yeah, exactly.
Man.
Exactly.
I am for, yeah.
Yeah. So
Empathize.
basically what happened there was they put me in the waiting room again. I decided to go to the toilet and make myself throw up because I just wanted to feel something, because I just wanted some like change in my state. And then I put on this meditation app, and I was in there for an hour. I was in the toilet for an hour, the disabled toilet. And suddenly I had this voice in my head. It was like, surrender, just let go. Just let go. Let this happen. Let whatever wants to happen. If it's death, let it happen. And it was like this epiphany. It's like, fighting it isn't working. Like, fighting the panic attack isn't working. Just let it wash you away. Just whatever. Like, you've got nothing to lose. And then I did that. I surrendered. And suddenly this like relief like washed in my body, and I was like, oh my God, like I feel relief. And I got out of the hospital without even being seen, and I went straight to the therapy office at university, got seen to, went to Waterstones, bought 4 books, and that was the day that changed my life. I stopped drinking. I started getting into self-help. I started therapy, and that day changed my life. And I had this thought, I can get myself out of it. I had this like thought when I left the hospital, they can't get me out of it because they haven't got me out of it. I need to do something internally to get myself out of this. And that was the thought that changed my life.
Yeah, so many different areas we can explore from that. First of all, yeah, we could touch upon briefly the treatment that they were giving you. You're saying it obviously didn't work. So what were the standard practices that just weren't resonating? Was it medication, or what were they trying to do?
Yeah, so, I mean, they didn't really do anything. I just was waiting in the waiting room a lot of the time. But they did refer me to a GP, and the GP was terrible. It was terrible. I went there, and they gave me medication for a beta blocker and an SSRI called citalopram. They said, take this, you'll be sweet, and here's a hotline that you can call. And honestly, the medication made the symptoms worse and the paranoia worse.
Well, yeah, personally, I'm just super against that stuff, outwards looking in, because you're not dealing with the root cause of the issue, right? You're just there, and they're just trying to numb you. They're just selling you shit to numb it, but they're not actually getting rid of it. I think there's just so much wrong with that, just from my point of view. And obviously, it wasn't working for you. I wonder how many other people would just think, right, that's the solution. It's just to numb it. It's crazy, right? Like looking at that, and you kind of came up with this realization in of yourself, and often it's this resistance. It's the resistance that actually causes the suffering. So The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Great book.
Absolute game changer. It's changed quite a few people's lives. And he talks about resistance. And the reason why people are suffering a lot of the time is because they are resisting something. Let's say you're trying to work and you've got this urge to procrastinate. Something I've noticed with my clients as well, they will try and fight it, and they're like, oh, but I just want to work, but I'm procrastinating, and there's all this, and they get worked up, they're like, I should be working. But it's like, hey, I think Eckhart Tolle just suggests, okay, you know what, get rid of the resistance. If you want to be lazy, or if you've got a tendency to be lazy, just be lazy. But just do that with 100% of your intensity, I suppose, rather than trying to fight it, because it's that resistance that causes the issue, right?
That's amazing. I was at a mastermind a few months ago in Canggu, and there was a speaker there that said, if you scroll on your phone and you've got like a habit of doing that, or if you've got a habit of sleeping with loads of women, own it, do it more, because the leaning into it takes away the resistance, which then frees you to change the habit, right? It's like people, because you've got this stigma of doing a habit, and maybe there's shame around it, if it's porn. A lot of people have shame around watching it, so that makes them watch it more, because the shame lowers their dopamine, which means they're in need of the dopamine more. And it's like, it's actually better to lean into it and own it. Like, yeah, fuck it, okay, I give myself permission to scroll for 5 hours. You're way less likely to be sucked into it because there's not that resistance that's pulling you in.
Yeah, and you can apply this to loads of different areas of life as well. I've discussed it on the podcast before, but often if we're told we can't do something, then we're more likely to do it, because it's like, oh, okay, suddenly it's not available. But if you just said, right, okay, you can have it, go for it, whether it's maybe you can apply it to stopping smoking, or whether it's perhaps you're getting into a relationship for the first time and you're kind of not used to that, and you're thinking, oh, but what about everything else? And I think just having that focus, and just focusing on, okay, you know what, just you have the option to do something, and it's there if you want it. I think you're actually more likely to, just kind of be and not just get rid of that, right? And in your instance, coming back to what's been happening with you at this period in your life, you've learned, right, just let go, and just that concept can be applied to so many different areas of life. I presume, did you read the book, Letting Go? Can't remember who it's by.
David Hawkins.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've read that book, yeah.
Yeah, and was that one of the first 4 self-help books that you got, or what was your thinking behind that?
I didn't read it. I didn't read that information to let go then. It was like, it made me spiritual, that experience, because I believe that was downloaded from the universe or God. I really believe that, because it was like, it's like, you can refer to it as God or universe. I mean, I believe in source, a higher power. I don't have a religious home. But I believe that source put me in a corner. It backed me into a corner where I had no other option but to let go. And then I had this idea planted into me from source, from God, from the universe, that I just need to let go. And that was it. I didn't need to read it. It was planted in me because it didn't make sense to continue to resist. I was backed into a corner. And that's why I'm so grateful, and that's why I'm so keen on spreading the idea that your adversities are your blessings, truly. Because if I wasn't backed into that corner, I wouldn't have changed. And I speak to so many people who struggle with disordered anxiety. I had a call with a guy yesterday. He's been struggling really badly. He's not been able to leave his house properly for 6-7 years. And I asked him, well, why haven't you changed? For me, I had to change. Like, I had no choice. My life was terrible. I was in constant pain. It was like I was sleeping on a bed of needles, right? He said, because I'm comfortable in the pattern. I was like, well, that's why. You're comfortable. You can work from home. You've got a gym in your backyard. You've got everything. You've got a good setup. So that's why you haven't changed. That's why pain, severe pain, like I went through, and is a blessing. And that's why I spread that message, to actually embrace the suffering. Let the universe or let life guide you. Don't resist it. Listen to the lessons that it's trying to give you and learn the lessons, and then the pain will go. Like, when you learn the lessons, like they say, pain is the greatest teacher. When you learn the lessons pain is trying to teach you, that's when the pain goes.
Yes. Yeah, it's come up on the pod so many times, but it's so important. I think we're almost brought up now with this idea that, being uncomfortable or change or fear is a bad thing. And it's societal conditioning perhaps, or just childhood conditioning. Okay, anything bad, anything remotely terrible. But once you start changing your mindset, Rowdy spoke about this in our episode as well, he loves the bad times. He's almost obsessed by them. He's like, great, an opportunity for me to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's it. But without those bad times, you're, like you were saying before, you were kind of in that middle ground. Your ego was telling you that you were happy, but the reality was, no, there was this underlying thing that was, nagging away at you, and it was your wake-up call that enabled you to, okay, cool, right, we need to do something about this, and you didn't know what the answer was, and then the answer was kind of given to you by, we've talked about this idea of like a higher intelligence, perhaps, or a higher being. I really want to touch upon that too, because I feel like a lot of the time we get too trapped up in our own mind. And what I notice with a lot of people is that they take life very seriously, very, very seriously.
Yeah.
And they get worked up in their daily routine, and, I've done this today, but I didn't do this today, and I set out to do this, and it's just very self-centered. And that was me for a very long period. Just the whole world revolves around me. And in my mind, it was, I was kind of like a victim almost. And the second that you start thinking or seeing yourself as a victim, then life's going to happen to you, not for you, right? And I think there's something really, really important that we should expand upon, which is this idea that there's so much more to life than these games. Aaron Timms was on the show. He talked about how life is a game almost, and all these things. We all have goals, right? Maybe it's a relationship goal. We would like a lovely girlfriend, or perhaps it's a work-related goal or career-related goal. We want to climb the corporate ladder. We want to do this. Perhaps we want a certain amount of money. But all this stuff, that's all it is. It's stuff. It's external stuff that is not permanent. It can come and go.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if it can come and go, then we need to find that joy and happiness inside of ourselves, right? Is that a pattern that you've seen not only with yourself, but with your clients as well?
100%. You know, big cause of anxiety is self-centeredness. It's the idea that you're the only person who matters. And a lot of people who are anxious, because they're struggling and suffering inside themselves so much, they only focus on themselves. One thing that I think I did really well on my recovery journey was I was able to help people. Even though I hadn't got out of the cycle completely, I was helping people. So I was putting other people in my life. I created a purpose for myself, which helped offset a lot of the anxiety I was experiencing, because I was making it about other people and serving other people. And I think, going back to the idea of the universe, I was serving God, or I was serving the universe, and I was rewarded for that. And I do believe every single person, anxious or not, right? Most people are anxious if they don't have a purpose or they don't have something bigger than themselves. Find something that serves other people, and that will help you a lot with your mental health.
I really think that's the key. Just try and give back. I do think you will be rewarded by that.
1,000,000,000%.
Like, you will be, if you're operating from a place of love. This is what my girlfriend tells me all the time, and we say now we're just so protected, just operating at that love frequency. If your intentions are good, then you will be rewarded.
Yeah.
I appreciate there will be people listening to this who they wouldn't define themselves as spiritual. I know, speaking to people, there's a bit of resistance.
Yeah. I was like that, by the way. I just want to say that. I was completely like that. I used to think, what a load of bollocks. That's what I thought.
Well, of course.
Yeah.
And I do think it's a natural thing when you have got a strong ego to protect wherever you've been protecting. You're not going to think there's anything outside of yourself, right? And what do you think people can do then? Because there is resistance there. It's like, because even like my example is, my thing, which I believe wholeheartedly, is, right, whatever will be, and everything's meant to happen.
Yeah.
Right. And I believe that, but
I
some
agree.
people, absolutely, but some people don't necessarily believe that. They're not at that stage, right?
Yeah.
So how can people, I don't know, if they're not connected to something greater, how do you think people can maybe get on that journey? Or if they don't necessarily want to get started on that journey yet, how can they try and see something outside of themselves, perhaps?
I've got a great example. I posted a TikTok on this very subject in the last few days, and it went viral. It got 250,000 views. And in the comment section, there's this crazy war between people who are spiritual, who are tapped into this belief that everything happens for a reason and that you only have so much free will. And there's other people saying, oh, what you said, that's not true. We have all the free will in the world. Like, we determine what our life looks like. In fact, what I'll do is I'll read it out, because this is so important. I think it's a really important point to raise. So I posted to my audience on TikTok, when are you going to realize that whatever happens to you is already written? If you're meant to die early, it will happen. If you're meant to live a full life, it will happen. There is no need to fear or resist what is already written. You've already won by being born. Trust God's plan. And I'll just speak on that point now. If you get a terminal cancer prognosis, that's not in your hands. Like, you can't free will your way out of that. There's some things you can't free will your way out of, and there's some things in life you just have to surrender. And I believe a big cause of anxiety is people trying to exercise control over things they can't control. But if you trust God or the universe, and if you surrender to God and the universe, and you have faith, and you choose that everything that's happening to you, whether it's really severe, whether it is cancer, whether it is a tragedy in your family, if you choose to believe that that is serving some higher purpose, you will never suffer. You will never suffer. And I believe that I'm never going to suffer the way I suffered before because of my mindset, because of the person I've become. I don't resist things anymore. I look for the opportunity in things. I see everything as a blessing, good and bad. And if you choose to look at it that way, you're not going to suffer. So that's it. So we got a conversation here between people. I mean, it got 500 comments. A lot of them were like, yep, I agree. A lot of them are like, nope, what are you on about? You believe in a man in the sky. And I don't look at God that way. But there's a lot of people who are still in that, like we said, they haven't had an ego death yet. And they're still sort of protecting themselves.
Yes. Yeah. And you can see why you would do that, right? If you don't know, it's your belief system. You don't see what's outside of that. I think death as well is something that can help open the minds of people too. In The Untethered Soul, he talks about death as well, and the fact that we never really touch upon it. It's never really spoken about. But by having death as the front of our mind, we can really get a sense of joy out of life. Because often, if you ask people, but what are you actually doing with your time, or what are you... And they'll realise, okay, a lot of the time I'm not doing the things that I love. I'm not doing the things that I want to do. I'm procrastinating a bit, and I'm scrolling a bit, and I'm worrying about this. And if you actually look at the percentage of your day that you're worrying about the future, or you're ruminating on the past, which, by the way, I don't even think exists. I just think there was a now that was just always happening.
That's interesting.
So that's another concept. But point is, if this was your last day on earth, would you be spending it the way you are now, worrying about the future, worrying about the past? And even if you, let's say, right, we're in 2025, if you had, let's say you'd just been teleported down here from 2085 or whenever it may be, if you've come here and you're going to be taking in absolutely everything, right? You're going to be looking at this plants, you're going to be looking at you're going to be really taking everything in. You're going to be looking, and you're going to be so incredibly impressed by everything around you. You're going to be observing people. You're going to be everything. You're going to go into the store. You're going to be like, wow, like I can get a coffee for only like £3 or £4. That's crazy. Yeah. Anyway, point being is that we can access that mentality now, but the problem is we get so attached to our mind that it's sucking the joy out of life. And I think if we can just really just sit there and, right, when we want to, hop into our mind. Okay, so the mind's there. We can focus on our work. We can, think about people we need to text. We can do jiu-jitsu, whatever it may be. And that's what the mind is for, working on stuff. And we need our mind. We need our ego. Because if we just came down with a soul, then we'd probably die pretty quickly. We'd probably walk across the road and, okay, 100%. Back up there. So it is necessary, but we need to be able to detach from our mind. And when you get to that spot where you can just, take yourself out of the mind and really just absorb everything around you and get rid of the concept of time completely, that's when you're truly living, I think. And I wonder, with your clients, do you see a big pattern? Is that they're just stuck in their mind? They don't see something outside of that, maybe? Yeah,
I see that all the time. And just touching on what you said about death. Death is the greatest focuser. If you know that you're about to die, like you said, you got a day left, and you literally take everything in. I mean, I was with Leo yesterday. I don't know how long he's got. He might have a few days left. Yesterday was when I visited him. That might be his last day here on Earth. So I was like super present with him. I was stroking him. Every stroke mattered. Every time I locked eyes with him, it mattered. And like you said, if you have that mentality today, before tragedy happens, you're going to live a much richer life. I remember philosopher Seneca said, life is long enough. The problem is people don't live it. So it feels short. But if you lived your life right, it would feel long enough. If you live your life fully, and you fully embrace it, and you fully are in alignment with your purpose, life is long enough. And that gives me comfort, because I know I'm in alignment. But your point in the clients, I think there's a massive absence of gratitude. It's like, even if you're suffering, you can still be grateful. Like, gratitude is so important. And this comes down to this mindset of, are you in this victim consciousness of my life's shit, I'm suffering? Or are you in this consciousness of, yeah, my life isn't great right now, I'm struggling with anxiety, I'm struggling with depression, whatever the problem is. But right now I can choose to be happy. And everyone here watching this, you can choose to be happy no matter what you're going through. In this moment, you can choose to be happy, even if your nervous system is feeling like it's pulling away from you. So gratitude, in my opinion, is a great, great tool that people don't utilize enough. And you can be grateful at any point in any day, and you can choose to do that. It's a choice. Too many people don't realize they have choice. That's the problem. They think it's, because they're in this victim consciousness, they think it's all outside of them. But all the answers, all the feelings that they're looking for can be created right now with your focus, with gratitude.
Yes, and what I've also learned quite recently, and a subject I'm really interested in and I'm reading more about, is this concept of chemicals and how our body actually gets addicted to feeling a certain way. So addicted to feelings of guilt. And this is so fucking interesting, because what happens is our subconscious takes control, and it will, if we've been feeling guilt our whole entire lives, that's just an example, what will happen is we will subconsciously seek out situations that give us that feeling.
Yeah.
So even though on the conscious level we're like, I don't want to feel this way, and we're pushing it away, but subconsciously we're actually looking for that because that's what we're used to. I think people need to be aware that, okay, your body is like reacting to this underneath the surface. And I think just having that awareness of, okay, when you do feel this, thinking, okay, right, stopping and thinking, okay, where do I actually want to take this? Do I want to go down the usual route of, okay, ruminating on this? And yeah, and it still happens sometimes now. I'll kind of catch myself, no matter how aware you get, you're still going to get days. And I think that's an important one to mention. I don't think there's a point where you just complete life and you've got all the answers. It's a constant growth voyage, hence the name of the podcast.
Like that.
It is, man. It's a whole journey, and you've never got it entirely figured out. Even now, I'll sort of catch myself where, I've been like triggered by something, and it will, and then I'm like, okay, hang on. And I think that distance between that having that moment after, you're like, okay, right, I know why that's happened.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm noticing now is with my clients as well, the distance between, because before they were just experiencing the emotion and weren't doing anything about it, living in autopilot. Now might take a bit of time, but what will happen eventually is they'll be able to reflect on it, be like, okay, I know why this has happened. It's related to a reaction I've had in the past, and now me as the adult version, I can then take my 8-year-old self, 5-year-old self, whatever, and be like, hey, okay, it's not that bad, we don't need to do this. And I think by reflecting on your thought patterns, you can then get to a point, ideally in the moment, where you're able to go, okay, trigger, but then, no, I'm not going to entertain that. And that doesn't come overnight as well, right?
No, it doesn't. And it comes back to that conversation we had before the podcast, before we started rolling, about can you fully heal trauma? You can. I believe that to some extent, if you've had a lot of guilt, let's say in your childhood, that guilt will rear its head. But the difference is your level of awareness, and you've trained, like if you've done the work on yourself and you've trained your brain to not go down those rabbit holes, it will rear its head still if it's been an emotional home for you in your childhood. But you can develop the ability to not let that trigger determine your actions, which it would have triggered in the past. Let's say with guilt, you feel guilty about something and then you play out a certain behaviour. You just don't go down that behaviour anymore, but you still feel triggered. And I think that's important to recognise. And as well, everyone has, I learned this from Tony Robbins about having an emotional home. People have a predominant emotion that they spend the most time in. And he always says, what is your emotional home? What emotion do you spend the most time with? And then that helps you develop a deeper understanding and awareness of maybe certain emotions that you're attaching yourself to, or that you're fueling subconsciously, like you said, that aren't serving you. And for some people it's guilt, for some people it's fear, for some people it's sadness.
Yes, and even coming on to that, this is where you can get really deep and interesting, because it starts with all the surface layer stuff, but when you ask about people's whys and why they're doing their daily actions, this is a big one, because what you realise, you peel back the layers and you realise that everything that we do is we're chasing a feeling or avoiding a feeling. So even Aaron have touched upon this as well, and it's something I've noticed with people. They're living in this, it's almost like autopilot, right? Okay, yeah, I'm doing this because I want money, but is it actually money that you want? Okay, why do you want money? Okay, because I want to do this. Okay, why? And you realize when you get why, just asking those why questions, okay, why? Why is that important to you? What would that do? You realize that we're all chasing a feeling. And a lot of the time, I think we're running on fear.
Yes.
And when you're running by fear, and again, I think it was Tony Robbins who mentioned this as well. He talks about how fear you can only use for a certain period of time for motivation, but eventually, yeah, it's going to run out of fuel and you need something greater. And ultimately, I think one step which people can do is, okay, what is my why? And do I want that to be my why? Can I change my why to something else? And then becoming more conscious. And this is where, I don't know if you touch upon this a lot with your clients or in your own journey, but thinking about the why and getting quite deep with that in terms of, okay, what are my values? Why am I actually doing this? And I feel like that can help. We've discussed this before the pod as well. This can help perhaps create or develop their future identity as well and make sure they're on a path that's aligned with them. Do you find that's a constant theme as well, where people are perhaps disconnected from what they truly should be doing?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like that comes down to the purposelessness, which only fuels anxiety. Pattern I see with most of my clients is they're so fixated on they're fixing anxiety that they don't have anything else to focus on. And the more they focus on the anxiety, the more anxiety they have. So it's because they haven't done enough introspection to understand their why, to understand what it is that they want to do. And because they have no purpose, what happens is they focus on pain, and more pain happens then. So, yeah, the answer is yes to that. And I don't know what else I was going to say on that, but I think it's important. What I'd like to say is it's important to do some soul searching, some digging to understand what is my why do I do what I do, and you can understand it by understanding your values, and your values usually come from voids. Like the thing you lacked in your childhood is usually what you value. If you lacked money, then you value money because you didn't have that financial security in the past.
Yes.
So it's interesting. Can your why truly be about striving towards something, or does it always have to be from running away from the pain of the past or creating a life where you don't relive the past? It's interesting. Can you actually get away from that? Can you actually change your values so that you value something more than simply creating a life, which means you don't need to relive the pain of the past? I think that's an interesting concept, because I believe to some extent everyone is subconsciously creating a life that creates safety from their past, including myself. Like, I'm very aware of certain behaviours and patterns I have that because of the voids I've had in my past.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to the inner child again, in terms of, right, what was sort of a big fear? What did we observe? In my instance, I experienced a divorce when I was 6 years old, and it was very messy. And now I'm thinking, okay, what are the emotions that I experienced back then that I'm trying to avoid now? And you can apply that to so many different areas of life. I was keen to touch upon anxiety as well, because my belief is, right, treat anxiety with curiosity, right? What's it trying to tell you? But this is actually, I don't actually know the full extent of the answer to this. I find it an interesting concept, because on the one hand, it's like, okay, what's your anxiety telling you? Could it be quite helpful? Is it telling you that what you're doing isn't right? Is that what anxiety is? However, I've also come across the idea that 90% of our thoughts are a load of bollocks, and that it causes problems that aren't there. So how can we figure out the difference between it's telling us that something's wrong and we need to change our life, or it's just it's just trying to come up with a fucking problem? Is that, because that's quite a complex idea, right?
It's a fantastic question to ask, because like you said, a lot of our thoughts are just rubbish. And that's one way to have a rubbish life, is believe everything your mind tells you. That's one way to have a really shit life. So I think it's about approaching every thought with some healthy distance and observation and curiosity. So for sure, sometimes your thoughts leave clues. You know, your triggers are your teachers. If you're feeling anxiety, there's a reason, there's a cause. And that's one thing that changed my life when I was in therapy. I shit on a lot of therapy for anxiety because a lot of them are ill-equipped to help people with anxiety. Most people come to me who said have been through numerous therapists, and they come to me as a last resort. And one thing that I've realised is that, well, yeah, they're not equipped. They're not equipped. But going back to this idea of how do you know which thoughts to take seriously and how do you know which thoughts to dismiss? Just treat anxiety as there is a cause for this. Something happened in the past that created this anxiety, that created certain beliefs and behaviours. So you should always investigate and try and understand what it was that caused the anxiety. Like, for me, it was being bullied at school was a big cause, and the effect that had on my self-esteem and my ego, and also my relationship with my dad was very challenging and difficult. So I unpacked that in therapy, but I wouldn't have been able to understand the root causes and understand how that affects my behaviour if I didn't look inwards. So the truth is, it's a difficult answer to it's a difficult question to answer, but there is always a cause. You need to find the cause because that will give you an awareness of the behaviours you're playing out and the beliefs that you're holding on to so that you can then change them. You've got to. Otherwise, if you don't address the root cause, if you don't address the beliefs and behaviours, you're always going to be in this cycle. So I don't know how to answer that.
I think you've answered it really well.
Yeah.
And I think just understanding, okay, where is this coming from? Questioning the thought, and then you can at least evaluate that thought with a critical mindset. So, okay, right, I know this is coming from a place of, low self-esteem or because I was shut down a lot. Okay, so with that knowledge in mind, now that you have that background, now can we interpret it differently? So, yeah, I think you've answered it pretty well. And, yeah, I think just one thing I always say is if you don't know where to start with all this sort of self-awareness, I think getting help, but then even you just mentioning there, it can be quite tricky because some of the help, especially when you first experienced it, the help that you received was non-existent / shit.
Yeah.
And now you're saying actually a lot of traditional therapy is not that great either. So, yeah, I think help's a tricky one perhaps is going to someone who you trust and whose values you agree with and you like them as a person and they've perhaps gone through it themselves.
You need that. You can't have a therapist who's reading from a textbook because there's certain nuances when it comes to anxiety. There's not going to be that level of understanding and compassion if you've never gone through it. But like I didn't have any compassion for people before I had disordered anxiety.
Yes.
So even if you have the best intentions as a therapist, you don't understand the nuances of the symptoms, how it feels, what's going on in your mind. But also, there's not going to be the same level of compassion and connection. And you, like you said, that you need to like the person. If they have the experience and they have all the tools that you need, but you don't like them, your nervous system's going to feel off and you're not going to open up. So you need to trust the person.
Yeah. I had Ross on the podcast as well, and he had a stabbing incident.
Wow.
And he got therapy for that. And he told me outside of the pod, he was like, mate, it was good. I got on well with her. But if someone hasn't been stabbed themselves, then how can they really relate to me? And it's a shame because I think a lot of people personally, I think everyone should go to get a good therapist, 100%, understand yourself. But yeah, I think a lot of resistance there. If you have got a strong ego, you're going to be like, I don't fucking need this, or what does she fucking know? And it's a shame because you can see why they'd think that way. No one wants to admit that they need help, but I think everyone fucking needs help. It's what we were discussing before, mate. Everyone's like projecting shit. Yeah, everyone. Like there's no, even the most conscious of conscious fucking wizards out there, even they have got shit to work on still. It's a never-ending journey, and I think but then again you can see why people would be close-minded, because why would you think, if you haven't gone through a big wake-up call, then you're not going to relate to that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And aside from finding someone who's been through it, is the first steps that you go through, is it cultivating an awareness, do you think, just journaling perhaps. Obviously, that's the classic one for just writing down what's in your thoughts and getting it on paper. Is that a method of understanding yourself?
Yeah, of course. It depends really where you're at and how you feel. If you feel desperate, go and work with someone straight away. But if you feel like you're not in too much pain, but you want to do a bit more introspection and some digging into why you play out certain behaviours, yeah, journaling's great. It's a great tool. But at the same time, we all have blind spots, even with journaling. Sometimes you need someone to point out, I noticed you said that in that way, and that could be coming from this place. So having someone to shine a light on your blind spots is so important. The thing is, if you don't have a raised, like a certain level of awareness and consciousness, you're never able to understand if something's a problem. Sometimes someone needs to say, look, I notice you keep saying this. I notice you keep using this word. I notice that you you change your body language when we talk about this subject. And that for me is very valuable. I worked with a therapist on and off for probably a year when I was going through the worst of the anxiety. And then I worked with a coach for 7 months. And my therapist didn't really do the same level of, like, oh, I noticed you did that. It wasn't calling me out. It was sort of just asking me the questions and guiding me. Whereas the coach was like, I've noticed you keep saying this over and over again. Why are you saying this? Or what are you trying to do when you say that?
Do you think that's the issue then? Because these traditional therapists are following a textbook, and there's a bit of professionalism aspect there. They won't tell you how it is, perhaps, and you need someone to just tell you straight to your face.
100 million %. 100 million %. There is a level of, got to be professional. They're licensed. They have to meet certain, regulations, or there's just their reputation is important to them. Whereas with a coach, you can just speak directly to someone. It's more unfiltered. It's more straight to the point. And for me personally, that served me better. And that's actually why I became a coach. I became a coach after I worked with a coach because I realized how much it's changed my life. And then I realized the power of coaching. So, yeah, I think coaching is just more straight to the point. And it's more, it's not prescriptive. They don't tell you what to say, to do. But they can be direct and say, hey, I've noticed you've said this quite a lot. What does that mean? Whereas therapists are more like, there's a level of professionalism.
I see that, and it's kind of understandable, I suppose. I guess we've covered a lot of grounds. We've covered spirituality, all the different stages of anxiety, awareness, so many different topics, which is just awesome. We've touched upon what people should do if they're, not only if they have noticed they've got anxiety, but even if they're at that point beforehand. Where they've got a sort of curiosity, I think it's fantastic. I think touched upon all of that. Is there anything else in particular you think that people should know regarding anxiety or anything that perhaps we haven't touched upon, do you think?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's an unlimited book of stuff, right?
Yeah, we could be here all day. But just something very practical and easy to apply for everyone here. Understanding how to trigger the vagus nerve is how you can control anxiety in the moment. So just something that you can do to calm your nervous system in any moment. Like the vagus nerve is located here, down the neck, all the way down to your gut. It's the longest nerve in your body. And knowing how to activate it any point in any day and having confidence in activating will change your life. Because even if you don't have disordered anxiety, if you're stressed before a presentation, a meeting, or something important, you can activate it on demand. And if you practice it, the stronger the vagus nerve becomes. It's like your biceps. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So having a practice every day to regulate will give you an edge over anxiety and will give you an edge in performance in life. So just a quick way to activate it is take a deep breath. Another inhale at the top. Notice that I'm relaxing every muscle in my face, in my upper body. I'm relaxing my shoulders. I'm just easing out and releasing all that stored energy in my body. So that's one way of doing it, humming. just turning on the vagus nerve, man, and relaxing your body, signaling to your body that you're safe. Just thought that'd be a good practical thing to share so anyone can use it at any point in any day.
Is that like a breathwork tool?
Yeah, I don't know if you call it, maybe you could refer to it as a breath work, yeah.
Yeah, so many cool tips.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've noticed like a similar one that I've used recently. So similar to that, I think it's like double inhale through the nose and then really slowly out the mouth. But I think, yeah, we'll give that a try, certainly. It's definitely so. And I'm sure also just in terms of sort of everyday life, I think you can find something on YouTube perhaps, see what works for you. Everyone's a bit different, I find. Yeah, we've got a new tradition for the close of the podcast. We have, obviously season 2, second episode in.
Season 2, baby, come on.
Let's go. We've got a new backdrop, by the way. And we're back. First question is a follow-on from last season, which is a song suggestion for the audience, if you have one that comes to mind.
Based on what?
Could be anything. It could be a mood. It could be your favourite song at the moment. It could be something that resonates with you.
Let's get up Spotify, right? Let's just pick what's on the recent. Let's see what's recent. So we've got, this is a song that I like, Missing, Todd Terry remix.
Oh,
like the desert, Mr. Rain. That's a good song, guys. Check that out.
That's one of my favourites. What a beautiful, beautiful track.
Let's go with that. I like that one. I've been listening to that a lot. So it just gets me in a good mood in the morning. It's like, no. I do a little dance when I'm brushing my teeth.
Mate, it's a classic. It's a real classic. What wicked suggestion. I love that.
My man.
Let's go. Second suggestion is a book.
A book. The Untethered Soul. That's the best book I've ever read in my life. For anyone who's struggling with anxiety or who's going through a period of struggle, any type of struggle, it helps you detach from the thoughts. It helps you learn how to operate and how to respond to the thoughts instead of reacting. And it's changed my life more than I could even explain. So Untethered Soul, The Power of Now, like we've mentioned, is another great book, Eckhart Tolle. And I'm going to plug another one. I know you only said one.
Please.
The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday has helped develop my mindset so much, especially when I needed it a few years ago.
He's got quite a few, hasn't he? He's got Ego is the Enemy. He's got the Daily Stoic, if you want a daily one.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. The Daily Stoic's a good one.
Yeah, so many gems from Ryan Holiday. Yeah, love that. And Untethered Soul, Power of Now, great books, I think. And also a little hack, because maybe this is obvious news, but I only realised not too long ago that with Spotify Premium you get access to a lot of audiobooks, and I had no idea.
I'm having the revelation right now. I know you had podcasts on there. But
you can get Untethered Souls on there.
Wow! I sent my clients the Untethered Soul on YouTube, so you can listen to it on Spotify as well.
Spotify Premium,
guys, you know where to go today after this podcast.
Yeah, it's a game changer. To be fair, I don't know if all of them are on there, but certainly the ones that I've wanted to listen to are on there.
Wow!
And I actually heard a hack recently where if you've got the physical copy and you can get access to the audiobook as well, you can do both at the same time, and then you read really quickly.
Wow.
I didn't come up with that myself.
That's fantastic.
I won't take the credit, but yeah, really cool suggestion.
There we go. Look at the value being added on this podcast. That alone is awesome to know.
Could be a game changer, man. And the third one is I've been asking on the Growth Voyage podcast story. You can follow us on Instagram if you're not there already at the Growth Voyage podcast, and I get a member of our following to ask a question to the guest, which is pretty awesome.
That's cool.
This one comes in from Callum McKenzie. What one moment in your life hurt so much but has made you into the man you are now?
The day in the disabled toilets in A&E was the hardest moment of my life, and also the best moment of my life, because it marked the start of a journey that made me who I am today. I've never felt as lost. I've never felt as hopeless. I thought I could be sectioned, But that was the day where I let go, and that was the day I was guided to the self-help world and to my career that I'm doing now, and I'm helping thousands and thousands, well, more than that, millions of people. And like personally, I'm helping hundreds of people. So that changed my life, and I'm super grateful that I was given that lesson there and then. Changed the trajectory of my life.
I love that. If anyone's listening now and you're going through a really fucking shit time, it's probably a blessing. And I think just if you can, I know it's tough, but if you can just remember that, I think it's so, so important to remember. No matter how shit life seems, it is happening to you for a reason. This is a chance now. You're basically going through this period of massive, it's shaking your world, but on the other side is where you're meant to be, I think. So, yeah, definitely don't forget that.
Yeah,
Magnus,
can I just echo what you just said there?
Absolutely.
That's probably the most important message that I want to get across from people watching today. If you're going through pain right now, just ask yourself the question, how could this be happening for me? How could this be serving me? How could this create a better future for me right now? What can I learn from these lessons that I'm being given today? And understand that the universe is always conspiring to help you. You're not a victim. It's trying to help you level up. So please just trust the process. You might not be able to trust it right now, but just open your mind to the idea that this could be happening for you, and that will change a lot for you.
Yeah, preach to that. 100% agree, brother. Magnus, thank you so much.
Thank you, bro.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
having me on, man.
Most welcome.